Oh, hello.
Hello.
I would like to debate on Scoff Cawthon. I don't have any personal biases or whatever, but
Hmm?
but I don't agree with canceling him. His views
Okay.
seem his views seem mainstream enough
Wait,
for
hold
other
on,
people,
hold on,
but
hold
oh,
on,
sorry.
hold on, wait,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So, really quickly, before we get into the debate, I just want to ask, did you see my video talking about this?
I saw a debate previous to yours, talking to some sort of JQ guy, and I wanted to do better than him because he was really bad at debating. He's debatably a troll, honestly.
Yeah, probably. Regardless, okay. Well, do you mind if I give my take really quickly, and then you can sort of take that apart, and we can discuss
Oh, okay,
parts
yeah,
of
you
it
can do
as you
your
like?
you can do your take. Yeah, I have mine
Okay.
in a Twitter DM I sent to you.
All right, cool. So I think that cancel culture is pretty fucking cancerous. I don't like cancel culture. I don't like the way that canceling typically plays out. For example, Scott Cawthon got a lot of death threats. He had to deal with doxing. He and his wife, and I completely believe this, were scared that something was going to happen. She's like pregnant. It was overall pretty fucking bad, the kind of stuff that was happening. However, I do think it is valid for people that feel as though they have a sense of betrayal that they feel because they supported this person who made a ton of games they like and they're LGBT, and they find out that Scott is using debatably their money, the money that they paid in buying Scott's products from his games to like the other merchandise and whatnot, to help very anti-LGBT candidates get into power. I would feel very betrayed if I was in their place as well. I don't really have much of a stake in the game, but I'm absolutely willing to defend the people who feel upset about that. I will not, however, and a lot of people try to paint me as doing this, defend the people engaging in doxing and death threats.
No, I'm
So
not.
yeah,
I'm not trying
that's
to
my take.
paint you as doing that at all. However, I do believe that these candidates seem mainstream enough to not engage in reversing any LGBT rights. Because the party platform of
Mm-hmm.
the Republican Party has become increasingly more pro LGBT. Also, in addition, that there that like polls suggest that most people within the Republican Party support LGBT rights and whatnot. In
So
fact,
that's really cool, and I'm glad about that. However, you have to consider the fact that, for example, for one, their mainstream, like the amount how mainstream these candidates are, doesn't really matter. The point is that the first thing that comes to mind right away is Mitch McConnell, who is openly anti-gay marriage. He donated I think it was $10,000. I can't remember exactly. It was between $5,000 and $10,000 to Mitch McConnell in 2020. Last year, back when it was very well known that Mitch McConnell was anti-gay marriage, and has been, obviously Trump took away the right for trans people to be in the military. His administration and him also attempted to take away medical care for trans people. They've been pretty open anti-LGBT for a while now. The Republican Party is becoming a little bit more soft on gay people, I would say. Like, they're becoming a little bit less antagonistic, just a little bit. But trans people especially are really at the brunt of it right now. Very, very much so.
these are more reflectors of the cultural state that people face. For example, taking away protections for LGBT for trans people, for example, within employment. These are reflectors of the culture within Republican states generally. Um, and
So
there
wait, why?
are
What does that change about
uh,
Scott Cawthon donating to those politicians that support that then?
because they're just going along within their culture. It isn't explicitly anti-LGBT. It's not. It's more implicit. It's like de facto. Also, there are many iffy, non anti-trans reasons. Example, the military.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing them out of the military. That would be to save money on HRT, um, debatably. But
Oh, that's not a
I'm
good
not.
point. Hold on, you are aware that the United States military spends a shit ton on dick pills for like old veterans, right? Like this isn't the amount that the military is spending on that is way more, even per capita, than they'd be spending on trans people transitioning. Not only that, but even if you want to make the argument that like trans people may not be mentally well enough to or capable to serve in our military, we already have an extremely stringent and pretty damn good mental health screening in the military that would cover for anything that could make it so that a trans person would be ineligible to serve. There's no excuse whatsoever for that, other than there is a distinct agenda against trans people, and this is a way of taking away yet another right or privilege from trans people simply on the basis that they're trans.
But is it explicit or implicit, like discrimination?
It's pretty explicit when it says, under no circumstances shall transgender individuals be able to serve in the military. I'm pretty sure that was the exact wording of Trump's executive order.
But it seems very implicit because it's not particularly targeted for a transphobic reason. For example,
what do you think transphobia is?
It's like a dislike towards not dislike
discrimination.
Favoring,
to be broad.
Discrimination. Or disfavoring. But
so what does discrimination mean?
It has to be explicit though.
Why does it have to be explicit? Do you think that like racists are usually explicit about being racist?
Actually, yes. Like
no,
example,
in the vast majority of cases they aren't. Yeah, segregation, sure. Have you heard about like the Southern Strategy? The most notable and most notorious example of racism in this country is the Southern Strategy, which is all about dog whistling so that your racism is harder to point out, but those that are also racist can pick up on it. It's called dog whistling.
Yes, it's systemic racism, but there are differences. If you vote for like a Republican candidate, you aren't voting for like implicit racism. That's what I'm saying. You have to, if you truly dislike,
you're still allowing it. We can't know what Scott Cawthon believes, but we can look at his donations. We can look at his donations and see that he donated tens of thousands. I think my chat, I believe, calculated it on stream, and it came to the conclusion that he donated over $46,000 to these Republican candidates. This isn't like, oh, I like Trump because he says it how it is, so I'm going to donate like $10,000 to Trump because I like his campaign. Like even that would be iffy, but not nearly the fact that he had this row of Republican candidates that he was financially supporting significantly, and one Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard, which he made the donation shortly after she came out against trans women competing in women's sports. That was when, like very shortly after that is when Scott Cawthon sent that donation. So it comes off to me as though I would say that supports evidence that he did specifically do it because they're anti-LGBT.
So we don't know if this is like transmedicalist or whatever. Do we?
Wait, what? Transmedicalist?
We don't know if it's just transmedicalist or if it's outright transphobic.
What do you think transmedicalism means?
Transmedicalism is like exception of trans people under like very strict restrictions. For example, think of wanting only like adults transitioning.
So that is a position that a transmedicalist should have, but the definition of transmedicalist that most people agree on is believing the validity of a trans person is based on whether or not they have gender dysphoria. That's what a transmedicalist is. We would call someone who believes in what you described like a true scum, which most transmedicalists are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. I wanted to clarify there. Okay. So, you admit that the outcome of Scott Cawthon's donations is that he's supporting candidates that are anti-LGBT, yes? Or do we still disagree?
Implicit. What I'm saying is that it's a lot more implicit, and it probably won't even make it into effect due to the party platform. You probably can't even like reverse gay marriage rights or whatever. It seems impossible, honestly. Especially since it's 50-50.
Do you want to go over some of the anti-LGBT legislation that Trump pushed?
It's mostly directed towards trans people, and it's mostly implicit. I don't support it. However,
well, there's a point where there's so much evidence and such a pattern of going after, like trying to put into place legislation that would harm trans people or LGBT people broadly, and then also trying to repeal bills that already do protect them. He went out of his way to harm LGBT people. Like,
It's
There's a certain point where
not.
the evidence is so highly mounted that it doesn't even matter what Scott Cawthon's intentions are, if he's just pro-life or whatever, and that's why he votes Republican. If he's still contributing tens of thousands to Republican candidates that are actively trying to take away the right of LGBT people, I think it is completely valid for said LGBT people, as well as their as their supporters, to feel as though they've been duped and like they've got a right to be upset. You know, they say the path to hell is paved in good intentions, because it doesn't matter what your intentions are. If you're contributing financially to people who want to make the world worse, who are trying to do things that'll make the world worse, as in taking rights away from LGBT people, that's still the outcome. That's what actually matters to these LGBT people, to be harmed by the policies these Republicans are trying to put into place.
They still have rights to exist ultimately.
Wait, black people during segregation had the right to exist.
No,
They just
no, I
couldn't
mean, no,
use the
I
same
mean,
water
like,
fountains or sit on the front of the bus or go to the same
no,
schools.
no. I worded that a bit wrong. Sorry. They still have the right to like transition. That's like if you.
Are you sure?
take
Hold
that
on.
away.
Having the right to do something and having the ability is very different. For starters, Trump did try to take that right from them. So, and for to be completely clear, but even if he didn't, there's a difference between having the right to do something and actually having the ability to do something. For example, it doesn't matter for shit if it's legal for you to fly. If Trump passes a bill or Biden passes a bill that says you are legally allowed to fly like Superman into the sky and go wherever you want. It doesn't matter if that's legal. What matters is if you can actually do it. So when you have a system that puts behind a certain group of people, like black people, for example, if you have a system that over many, many decades, many fucking centuries even here in this country has put black people behind just because they are allowed to do something, doesn't mean they might, like, in all are able to do it because of certain socio-political issues, socioeconomic factors.
I well I don't know how to explain this, but if you have the legal right of transition, it's still like a symbolic meaning that you are valid if you have the right to transition, if you aren't restricted to do that, because many countries around the world have that right, and they're basically the barrier for what it means to be a pro-LGBT country.
Okay, here, let's go over his bills then. These are bills for LGBT people.
Okay.
That he wanted to pass. Whew, okay, we got a bit of a list here. He wanted to undermine section.
Yeah. It's 100
Sorry, what?
or so. It's 100 or so. I remember hearing about that.
But quite a few.
These are very subtle.
Well, these are the bigger ones. Undermine Section 1557 rule. HHS published a proposed major change to the administrative rule interpreting Sector 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, ACA, or Obamacare, to remove explicit protections for LGBTQ people in healthcare programs and activities by excluding LGBTQ people from protections from discrimination based on sex, stereotyping, and gender identity. He attempted to undermine this. He went hard on it, too. His whole administration was trying to make it so that doctors would be allowed to turn down LGBT patients simply on the basis of them being gay or trans or a lesbian or whatever.
This seems like a free market talking point more so. It isn't explicitly LGBT. Like anti-LGBT.
This includes doctors that are state employed, not private companies.
Oh.
Also, it's literally against the fucking it's against the Hippocratic Oath to deny care. You realize that, right? If someone is like dying or needs help, it is against the Hippocratic. You cannot be a doctor and deny that. The doctors take something called the Hippocratic Oath,
but
where they have to treat somebody who's hurt.
It may depend on like per individual. Like for example, one may deny a trans patient for I don't know for not like for not being able to transition. For example,
I really don't want to be mean, but do you realize how much you're reaching here? Like, you're really trying to excuse the like very blatant anti-LGBT rhetoric and beliefs of Trump here, the actions that he took to try to take away rights and privileges from people on the basis of their, sex or gender or their sexuality. And at the end of the day, all we're arguing about here is whether or not, if a trans person sees this, if an LGBT person sees this, do they have the right to feel upset or betrayed by the creator of their favorite game franchise because he's donated tens of thousands of dollars to these politicians?
Maybe I'm just a little bit stubborn, but I don't I don't it may just be like a fraction of their money, honestly. It doesn't
It
seem
doesn't
like it's
matter
that
how much. Dude,
big of an issue.
$46,000 isn't pocket change even to a millionaire. $46,000 is objectively a pretty significant contribution of money to send over to these politicians. Like, you clearly really care about them getting elected in that case. You are directly contributing to their campaign funding.
But what if they just ultimately don't care too much about that? And they were already pretty hardcore conservative and Christian in the first place. There's no surprise there.
Wait, so are you saying that people shouldn't be upset about it because they should have known he was like this
Yeah, you should have done your own
because he's
research.
Christian?
Yeah, you should have done your own research. He
I've
was an
I've always
evangelical.
known, but it doesn't mean everybody who's an FNAF fan knows about that. Do you think that like it's
His
reasonable to
origins
believe
were
that every Five Nights
evangelical.
at Sure, but do you think every Five Nights at Freddy's fan knows that? It's not like
I assume
his
they
old
should.
Christian games are anywhere close to Five Nights at Freddy's. I only know about it because I watched a bunch of MatPat videos about FNAF because I was like curious about it after I played it on stream.
I mean, if they really love FNAF, then they should know his origins. They should know that. They should know like it was. It was actually a really good origin story too. Um,
I know the origin story.
yeah,
I know it.
yeah. They
I looked
should
into the
have
whole
known.
thing.
Yeah. Like
What does
if
this
you really
What does this
love,
change about whether or not they can be upset about his donations?
well, you shouldn't be as surprised.
Also,
You
you
shouldn't
realize that not
cancel
all
them.
Christians you realize not all Christians are like homophobic, right?
Oh,
I don't think that
I know that.
maybe I'm
But,
like too generous to people who are religious, but usually when I encounter a Christian that's like that generally seems to be pretty chill, I usually don't immediately ascribe some kind of malice or believe that they're prejudiced against LGBT people unless they give some evidence that they are. I met plenty
yeah,
of
I know
Christians who are
that.
not homophobic because they believe everyone is made in God's image and whatnot. And I would have expected that,
Yeah.
prior to this drama from happening. I probably would have expected that of Scott Cawthon. He made a game that has a massively LGBTQ community because, furries tend to be pretty gay and furries love FNAF. I would have expected he was like one of those Christians that was like, yeah, everyone's made in God's image. So gay people, that's if people are gay, then that's how God wanted to be. But I mean,
Okay, yeah, but he was evangelical, and most evangelicals are pretty hardcore Republican. That's like the stereotype of what an evangelical is.
sure. What does this change about whether or not they should be allowed to be upset about it if they're
They
LGBT and
shouldn't
their
be
fans love them?
surprised.
There's a difference between being surprised and upset. If like a dude who looks like he's going to rob you is like around a corner and then you see him while you're walking into a store and then you walk out of the store and he tries to mug you, but because you should have expected it because he looked like the kind of guy that would mug you, should you not be allowed to be upset about it? This makes no sense. This logic doesn't follow in any
It
way.
seems like a bit of a false comparison because I don't because before you could have easily like pirated it if you really dislike it, for example. If you like, that seems like a bit of reach. Nah.
Hold on, wait. How about we'll draw another comparison? And I feel like while it's a bit more extreme, I feel like it's very comparable. You familiar with Notch, the creator of Minecraft?
Yeah, I think he has like a couple of right-wing values as well.
So he believes in the JQ. He believes that Jewish people
I-
run the world. He's a race realist, and he thinks trans people are mentally ill. And he said as much on Twitter. If you want to look into it, you can look up Notch Nazi tweets, and you can see the screenshots. A lot of them are still up. Like, dude's probably an alt-righter or a Nazi. Like seriously, those tweets were fucking insane. Nowhere near the level of what Scott Cawthon did. Scott Cawthon comes off to me as sort of like a homophobic Christian evangelical kind of guy, like you said. Notch is even more extreme. Do you think that people being upset about that was bad?
He actually supports the Pirate Party in Sweden. What was it? Yeah, it was center-right party. It's not like far right or anything. He would have probably like supported a different party, which was far right, and I think there is a far right party in Sweden.
Wait, sir. Wait, are you doing we should know what party Notch supported, and that's how people should have known he was right wing?
No, I already memorized it. No, I'm saying that he wasn't. I don't think he was far right because he supports the Pirate Party within Sweden, which actually supports direct democracy, doesn't it?
Okay, Are you aware that a lot of countries, so politics isn't the same in America as it is in Europe? Something you have to understand about Europe is that being pretty pro, like, national health and some more like what you would consider lefty or Democrat policies economically
No,
is
I kind of know
extremely
that.
common, and even it's extremely common even among like right wingers in Europe. However, when we talk about things like LGBTQ rights, race, and the rights of like immigrants, what have you, that's when
Oh,
you start to see the big difference. So even though
I'm not
Notch might
saying.
be in favor of like the more progressive like economic policy, doesn't say anything about what he thinks of the Jews or of trans people, because he's made his views on them clear on Twitter, and they are far from flattering, to say the least.
Oh, I'm not saying. I'm not. I kind of know that, but I'm saying that the Pirate Party is pro direct democracy, pro piracy, and all that stuff. And I imagine that he's not as far right. Maybe he's like trolling or whatever. I don't know. I kind of vaguely
Wait,
remember
what?
him not being as far right as that. Uh, I'm not sure. Could you explain some of the tweets for me? I'm probably
Yeah,
not.
sure.
Not
I
going
have
to
these
do.
tweets burned into my mind because I made a video. It was one of my first political videos I've ever made. So basically, Notch said, here, I'll paraphrase this one word for word, I believe. Someone asked, what are your opinions on race and IQ? And then he quote tweeted it and said, if it wasn't seen as a conspiracy, or sorry, if you wouldn't be labeled as a conspiracy theorist, I'd talk about it a lot more. When asked about race and IQ, he also talked about how like the Jewish question isn't a conspiracy. Yeah, it's pretty yikes. You can literally just Google like a list of Notch tweets. If anyone in chat wants to send me like a link to it, then we can go over them on stream specifically. But that's up to you if you want to go over that, my friend.
Seems a bit explicit, but honestly, that seems at like best
Well,
probably alt-light. Yeah.
Well, the prevailing theory seems to be that since Notch sold his share in Mojang and he got extraordinarily rich from it, of course, he's kind of lost a lot of his like motivation or what drives him in life. And that since then, what the fuck? Why are these elixirs so expensive? What is going on, auction house? What happened? The idea is that Notch essentially sort of went into a depressive state following his divorce and kind of got into the incel shit, which seems to hold up if you just look at his tweets and his general online activity as of late.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't like directly correlate that, like connect that with him. Honestly,
Wait, with who?
like I wouldn't connect the alt-right politics with Notch. After all, he would be a creator of one of my favorite games. I wouldn't
Well, the point is
despise
that
him for that.
you can like a game franchise and know that like unfortunately just because someone's very talented when it comes to making a certain type of media doesn't mean that they're a good person. Every single trans person has had to cope with that if they're a fucking J.K. Rowling or I should say Harry Potter fan because of J.K. Rowling. Every Minecraft fan who's like progressive has had to deal with Notch being like a full-on fucking mask-off alt-writer on Twitter. And now a lot of LGBT Scott Cawthon fans, or I should say Five Nights at Freddy's fans, are gonna have to just sort of, you know, however they choose to deal with Scott Cawthon being right wing. I guess he retired, so he probably doesn't have any part in the FNAF series anymore. He'll probably, you know, hand it off to someone else, but he'll still get royalties. But at the end of the day, I feel like people have a right to be upset about it. Like, if you still want to keep playing FNAF games and you're progressive or you're LGBT, that's fine. I won't blame you. You can even still buy them. I don't care. But people are going to be upset. That's just the nature of things. If like some SJW candidate that was like, oh, I want to make, we're gonna kill all the white people, or even if they were just behind the scenes advocating for like policies that would make white people slaves or something, even if it never went through, would you feel maybe a little bit like, yeah, what the fuck about something like that, right?
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
kind of feel a little betrayed if someone you liked supported that candidate, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying my best to try to like, what I'm trying to make you do here is empathize with LGBT people, because you aren't LGBT, are you?
I am actually but only barely.
Wait, are you bi? Are you a femboy?
yeah,
Wait, how are you
yeah.
LGBT? Okay, so you're
B.
bi. Okay, so in that case, cool. Do you see how perhaps like supporting candidates? So, for example, we actually went over this recently, and I forget which one of them it is, but the one of the candidates that Scott Cawthon donated to, I believe, is actually connected to the ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a designated hate group that has publicly said that they want to make gay marriage, or sorry, not gay marriage, gay sex illegal, or criminalize gay sex. I forget which candidate it was.
I do remember that. Yeah. I do remember that point, but I don't think that's an intrinsic like connection to what he supports. We don't actually know what a person does truly support, though. That's kind of that's kind of like a sort of.
Are we talking about how we don't know what Scott Cawthon believes?
Yeah, we don't know what he exactly believes.
Mm-hmm. You can never look into someone's mind and know what they believe. But
there is a caveat. Yeah, there's a caveat. You can never look into what someone believes, but I don't. That seems pretty. I don't know. I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so you can never know what someone actually believes. I don't know what Scott Cawthon believes. It may actually be the case that Scott does not hate LGBT people. He could be extraordinarily pro-LGBT, but in that case, he cares more about the policies that he supports from those particular politicians than he cares about LGBT people having rights and not being discriminated by the government, right? In that case, he may like that Trump is pro-life. That means he cares more about pro-life than he cares about LGBT people being able to have health care or go into the military or being allowed to transition or any of the fucking other dozens of anti-LGBT bills that Trump had to pass and the dozens of times he tried to repeal civil rights bills already passed for LGBT people.
Oh, yeah. I was actually going to say something pseudo intellectual, and I just got it. Okay, so we don't know what someone believes, but I would, as of now, I don't think we should correlate the Republican Party to anti-LGBT stuff because there are so many positions that it has as well.
So I understand what you're saying. The problem is. The problem is the Republican Party has lost its ability to be like, we're not the anti-LGBT party after so much shit they pulled. Like, there's a certain point where what your party has been like the face of anti-LGBT rhetoric for so long that you don't get to do the whole like, oh, well, see, we're a lot more pro-LGBT now. You just at a certain point, it's like, what are you doing, you know?
Yeah, and I could kind of agree with that. But there has been a rising rate of LGBT support within the Republican Party and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, generally society is getting more progressive. Obviously, the left will always be more pro-LGBT than... The left will always be more pro-LGBT than the right. There's just no debate over that.
Obvious, and I think we could agree with that. I think that Scott Cawthon is pretty suspicious, but I don't think he's explicitly... anti-LGBT. I don't think the Republicans are explicitly anti-LGBT, maybe implicitly, with some exceptions and some candidates.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, so here, let me ask if this is a accurate depiction of your belief. So you believe that it is unreasonable for like LGBT people that feel betrayed by Scott Cawthon and his political contributions financially. You feel as though it is unreasonable for them to be upset about that, right?
It seems a bit like an overgeneralization. It's not that not all Republicans are like explicitly anti-LGBT.
Okay, but the candidates that he donated to are. Mitch McConnell said that he wants to ban gay marriage. No, Mitch McConnell said he wants to ban gay marriage.
Yeah, with the exception, that's probably like
that he donated the most to Mitch McConnell. He donated $5K, one big $5K donation to Mitch McConnell.
He's the leader of the majority, like the House, the Senate minority. Yeah, so it seems like he could have donated the most money to him because he runs the Senate.
I don't believe minority. From my understanding, I may be wrong, but I think he's not capable of that at the moment. That's not how the Senate works. The Republicans would have to be in power, I believe, for that to happen.
No, I mean the Senate minority would. would mean he has like the most power within the Republican Party. I assume at the moment.
I would say Trump probably has the most power in the Republican Party when it comes to influence, but in regards to like actual political power, I'd say yeah, Mitch is probably
Yeah,
there. All right, so
that's what I'm saying.
do you what is your final meme? Okay, what is your thesis statement on Scott Cawthon?
Um, yeah, I think he's kind of sus, but I don't think he should get as much hate. Also, he's not crazy, so I think you have to be crazy before you actually be canceled. Like for example,
What
Notch.
do you mean crazy?
Like what was that person?
Marjorie Taylor
The,
Greene?
um no, not that. The one person from that one Baby Yoda frickin' thing. Mandalorian, yeah. Who was
Oh,
that
Gina
actor? Yeah,
Carano?
Gina Carano, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Like people that are probably a bit it's like too crazy to actually be on Twitter being canceled instead of a milquetoast conservative.
All right. So you believe that it has to be like extremely egregious in order to be
Yeah, it has
cancel
to be
worthy.
extremely egregious.
I see. Well, I'll go ahead and keep that in mind, okay? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. I am too much of an enlightened centrist, sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It feels like your take on this is a little bit. I don't want to be mean, but it comes off as a little bit spineless and kind of like you won't really like peg yourself on one single belief or like a strong statement, and like you walked back quite a few things. Once I was like, well, I mean, here's evidence of these candidates being anti-LGBT. You'd say, well, you can't know that, right? And then you went to, well, the right is becoming more pro-LGBT, and then I gave examples of these candidates once again doing anti-LGBT stuff, and you said, well, it's kind of implicit. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I appreciate you coming on.
Okay. Yeah, I am le pragmat. Also, I'll plug my Twitter.
Go
No.
ahead.
No,
Now
actually
you
I
can
won't.
you can plug your Twitter if you want.
Okay, at correct 52. What the freaking heck? I have so many numbers in my tag. At correct 520454242. Yay. Plugged it.
That is a difficult one to read off.
Yeah,
Well, all
yeah,
right.
that's a difficult one because the tag got auto corrected by Twitter. I
Yeah,
chose
Twitter.
random Twitter tag. Yeah, that's dumb.
Well, Twitter is sus. So
Yeah.
fuck Twitter. Anyway, thank you for coming on today.
Um, yeah, thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye. I don't know if that person was like a fan of my content or whatever, or if they just sort of like stumbled on my video, or apparently they hadn't seen it, or they'd just seen my debate with that one guy, or I don't know. But like a lot of people who are super pro Scott Cawthon were like, they were going nuts. They were going fucking nuts in my comments. Like, oh, you fucking dumbass. You fuck you goddamn libcuck. Blah, blah, blah. But then whenever I bring, so far the two people I brought on stream to like debate me on this topic on whether or not Scott Cawthon deserved like some of the backlash that he got, like I haven't been impressed with the arguments, to say the least. I mean, I appreciate them coming on and like talking to me. You know, I mean, it can be a little nerve-wracking, but I haven't been impressed by any of the arguments yet. They've more or less been exactly what I've expected, because they're pretty, you know, standard. Like, protect the person who is a large figure that does something sus, and they get canceled for it arguments, you know? Nothing that I've really haven't seen before. Anyway, if you enjoyed that debate, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The link's in the description. Join my fan Discord, the link in the description. And if you want to support me financially and you can afford to do so, please donate or subscribe to my website, xanderhall.com/live. You know, donate or subscribe to me on YouTube by hitting the join button to become a channel member or super chatting. And sub or prime sub on Twitch if you've got the money for it. All of it's appreciated. And then, of course, you can pledge on Patreon or even buy merch, the link in the description. So thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.